Acumen means the skill of making good decisions and correct judgments. It usually comes with years of experience and is limited to one's own field. But what if we could improve our acumen in key areas that usually take time, such as business and leadership, by learning from others? That's where this talk show comes in. Listen, learn from, and be inspired by C-suite executives, founders, and other leaders who have been where you are now before. I'm Dror Wayne, your host in Tel Aviv, and this is Acumen. Welcome back to Acumen. Today I'm joined by Alon Yariv, the CEO and co-founder of Qubex, a Tel Aviv startup which provides an installable platform for achieving high availability and high performance at low costs for Kubernetes environments. And for those of you who don't speak tech, well, that means if you're trying to order something on a website when they have a limited time special offer, or you're trying to get tickets for a concert which has just been released and everyone is trying to go to it, and then the website or app crashes. So these are the guys who help those companies make sure their things don't crash. He's also formerly the CTO at SDatta, and he was previously a prodigy violinist. Do you still play the violin?
Sometimes.
Okay. I want to hear a little bit later about that, about what sort of lessons and things you took from playing the violin to business and to being a leader. In fact, let's start off with that. You now lead a tech company. How does that compare to your music career?
Well, my favorite thing in my musical career was chamber music. And in chamber music, you're essentially collaborating with a group of very talented individuals to produce a product that you are all satisfied with. It can be a Mendelssohn string quartet or a Franck piano quintet. And there are many similarities between those two, like between leading a company and between being a first violinist at a chamber ensemble. For one hand, you do have the final say on almost every matter. However, you should first harness the talent that you have operating with you, as well as have kind of like a unanimous way so that everybody produces at the highest performance level they can have.
So am I right in saying in this kind of chamber music, you don't usually have a conductor, it's the first violinist who's playing and everyone has to follow him?
Yeah, there's no conductor.
So there's no conductor, which means you can't follow someone's hand signal saying, everybody quicker now, everybody louder now. It's kind of this non-verbal communication.
Exactly.
Where you're very limited. So if you want to get someone to speed up, you want to add an accelerando, you want to slow things down or whatever it is, how do you do that?
So I like this question because this is actually one of the lessons that I've learned that I can extrapolate from to almost any domain. When you want people to accelerate in a chamber ensemble, what you would do is to accelerate on your own by a tiny little bit. And you have to keep this kind of tension, not to overdo it, because you want people to be able to follow you and you want the difference to be minor enough so that it will be effective in pulling them with you. You want like a small push forward consistently over a long period of time to accelerate. And this is actually very effective in almost anything. If you want to build company culture, if you want to drive a certain mechanism inside your team, this is extremely valuable. Like consistency and this kind of like consistent small amount of tension in the right direction is a way to lead in
making changes.
Making changes, but also in a way that does not inspire antagonism.
Right, that's important because if you make a change which not everyone is aligned with, you can get more opposition. And I suppose it's like in being in chamber music, if you're trying to, I find this a lot in the synagogue when we're all singing. The leader is trying to sing at one speed, but there's one guy who says, no, I want to sing this song slowly. And then everyone is out because he can't listen to who you're singing to which speed you're meant to be singing. So that not making antagonism is important, but also I think it's interesting you mentioned that because my personal trainer often reminds me, Dror, we're going to improve 1% every time. And if you improve 1% every session, every day, every week, you can make amazing compound gains over a long period of time. So there's that importance of antagonism, but there's also the thing of if you change something too quickly, it might not be sustainable. You might not be ready. And yes, the team could pull it off once. They could pull it off amazingly for a week, a month, a year. Are they ready to do that on the long term? Have you made the foundational changes? If you ask me to lift a really heavy weight once, I could probably do it. You want me to do 10 reps, 3 sets, all the time and again, I probably couldn't. And that's why you just have to always lift that little bit more. Do 1 extra rep, 1 extra kilo to be able to build those muscles if you want to be able to lift those heavy weights again and again and again. So I think that kind of ties in there.
Yeah, definitely. It's just do things in an organic way. It's kind of, I think we discussed this. I had this beautiful, I don't know, should I jump to these kind of stories now?
Go for it. Tell us stories.
Right. So one of the moments that I was like, Qubex is being built in a way that I'm satisfied with was a moment that stood in very stark contrast to something that happened to me in SDatta. In both companies, in a time span of 2 years apart, I had important POCs finishing or starting right after Yom Kippur. In SDatta, we were a small team back then, and I had to. I remember like this was an emotional draining experience because I had to push employees, not really forcing them because it's kind of illegal to force people to work in Yom Kippur, but I had to play on their conscience quite significantly in order to achieve results like essentially over a vacation, a very holy vacation they have. I had to push them and I had to lead by example and to work myself throughout the holiday. And this was one of those experiences that I had to lead by force the team, which means essentially that I didn't plan ahead well enough. And I also didn't build the right culture so that a customer will be a first priority and it will be given that we give the best service no matter what. And 2 years later, I had the same problem in planning probably in the Yom Kippur 2 years after. This was already in Qubex. And we had a POC scheduled to start the day after. We were underprepared and we had some malfunctions. I didn't have to say a word to make anybody work because everybody worked through Yom Kippur.
Can I just add for a second, for anyone who's listening and isn't familiar with Yom Kippur, this story is the equivalent of working on Christmas Day in the UK or in the US for a Christian, right? So it's culturally important, it's religiously important, it's a very significant day. Yom Kippur in Israel, there are no cars on the road pretty much whatsoever, except a minimal amount of emergency service vehicles. This is that one day a year. So you're talking about a place where you've had 2 situations where the company needed people to work, let's say on Christmas or on Yom Kippur.
This happens in startups, like it's to be expected.
And in the first situation, the culture wasn't there and you had to do it by force. But in the second situation, there was culture there and you didn't have to ask. It was just done by the team.
Exactly. Like everybody were aligned with the mission of the company in Qubex. And what happened was that I was not very necessary for the work. Like I don't program anymore. So I couldn't contribute myself so much as morally. And I didn't have to force anybody. Just everybody stayed and worked and did what they had to do in order to make the POC work. It was just a matter of the entirety of the company, no matter who, were very aligned with our mission, were very aligned with the value of customers comes first, no matter what. And this is something that I built over a period of time with high consistency. It was like whenever there was a situation with the customer, it was always top priority. We dropped everything and just attended to this thing. And this was kind of like this procedurally built culture of significance to customer events and customer obsession. It was built in the right way. So I didn't have to be there and tell anybody to do something. They just knew this is what we should do.
So that brings me to another question then. And you've kind of touched on it, of how do you get everyone aligned on the company vision, both on the vision of what you're building, but also on these kind of values? How do you get people to appreciate the company in the same way you do, especially as quite a a young CEO in your last role, and even younger CTO. How does that work?
It's a very complicated topic, and it's something that I do a lot of ongoing research into. I think one of the things that is working well for us now is that we have a weekly all-hands meeting in which essentially I pitch the company again and again to the entirety of the employees. So we have
Does it not get boring?
No, because I change the focus, and once it's more about go-to-market, the other time is more about like fundraising aspects, the other one is like more about specific customer accounts. But essentially the same way, I try to sell them the things that motivate me that happened, and the reasons that I'm putting my time into the company, and the reasons that I believe we will succeed. And you can focus around a different point, like look how much traction and how much interest we have in telco. It's like unbelievable amount and unbelievable accounts. And look at how we structure the go-to-market and why we do it. And you give like the spotlight to different areas. And the thing is, in a startup, within a month, you'll have so much to update that you can go back to the focus that you had a month ago.
Okay, so that's how you keep it fresh and interesting. But you have founder levels of motivation. It's your baby.
Yeah.
Your SDR, your content writer has come for a job, and they're probably very grateful for that job because it's hard to find a job at the moment. But they've come to bring home however many $1,000 or shekels per month. And yes, they're motivated to earn commissions, but their goal is that commission. So how do you firstly provide that share and inspire that founder level of motivation in employees who don't necessarily, maybe they have a little bit of equity, but that's not their motivator, it's not their baby. And how do you keep them all aligned when they have these different priorities?
Well, people are not only motivated by the paycheck. So first there's the I would say dry way of motivating people, which is with equity. So if they believe in the company and they believe in the value of the equity they have, it's a very valuable motivator, and I'm very pro giving probably the highest amount you can afford to give to employees. I want my employees to have part of the success when we're successful. And I'm very lenient in this cause. The other part is that people want to be like one of the first employees of Yelp, of Redis, of Google. Like it's a story that people want to have in the resume. Like I've been employee number 20 in the most successful company that came out of Israel or something like that. And this is a very significant motivator. And if people believe what they're building is worthwhile and that it solves a problem that they experienced, and they see the market need and they see how big it will be, the motivation of doing something worthwhile with their time, especially for developers. Developers even do open source. They care about money, but they like building good technology. And if you give them like both good technology to develop and a good reason to develop it, like a good understanding of how the market reacts to it, it gives them a lot of internal value. Like I think it's important that every one of the employees will know about the deals that are coming in, why are they coming in, why it's such a pain point for them, because this gives them the most gratification.
Okay, I see. You're sharing the why in a way. How do you, if you're trying to recruit people, does this affect you what you ask in an interview? Do you expect them to already have a little bit of understanding of the mission, or is it more something that you know you're going to give them afterwards?
Not only in the interview, it has to be the first call. Like when I first call an interviewee, I will almost always first pitch the company, because it's, especially if you fight for significant talent, like there are two kinds of people that you interview. One interviewee is the interviewee that comes and is looking for a job. And the other one is the one that you want, the job is looking for him. You know, you have a certain talent, you You're not going to be the only one competing for him. You're not going to be the only one who recognizes the talent. So it's actually more your job to sell the company, to sell the vision, to sell the why. So we now, for like, I would say VP levels and senior level even sometimes, I will do personally the first phone call for like 20 minutes and I will pitch the company first.
You want them to be excited?
I want them to be excited, yeah. Because I want them to be excited afterwards for 2 years. Like they need to be excited from day zero. But yeah, like this is a whole topic, like what we focus on in interviews.
It's fascinating because also understanding what you as a founder CEO are looking for when you're hiring and how you interview and what you ask is valuable not only for other leaders and founders, but also for the people looking for the jobs. So there's a lot of learned in two ways here. And that makes me want to move on to some of my static questions, which I ask in every interview. The first one is, what in your mind makes good business?
Well, businesses first needs a good market reason to exist.
What does that mean?
Like you need first of all a good pain that you are solving, like a good portion of the market that you are addressing. It has to be. Unfortunately, I see too many businesses that start with the technology and then look for a reason. Actually, kind of experience it.
They're a solution looking for a problem.
Solution looking for, exactly. But I think the most significant part for an early stage startup is the people that you bring on board. Because you need to have a very agile team that can react to changes, that can react to what you learn from the market. And then just the more agile, the more brilliant people you can bring, the ones that can find themselves in a new topic or researching a new problem and adjust to it, is going to define how innovative you can be, how competitive. So it's, I think it's a very standard answer, but it's all about the people in a startup.
Look, a standard answer is important because if we hear the same answer again and again, it means you're onto something.
Yeah.
When everyone gives a different answer, it's valuable for lots of perspectives, but the consistency helps. So then my next question, how do you make decisions? What's your decision-making process?
It is highly dependent on what kind of decision I'm making and in what regards. I like to classify things. I forgot who is responsible for this classification, but I like to classify urgent, important, not urgent, important, urgent, not important, and none of them.
I think it's the Eisenhower matrix.
The Eisenhower. So for me, like until I started prioritizing with the Eisenhower metrics, I couldn't really prioritize. I couldn't really understand what's the difference between critical and very high. So I really like doing it by that. And if things are not urgent and important, I would say, I try to collect as much data from outside sources. Like I like to inform myself about different opinions than my own, to allow myself to do an informed decision. And I think I don't have a very special process for that, except that I'm willing to ask. I'm willing to ask help, because I know I'm doing particularly much, particularly well. I try to get as many different perspectives, and then eventually.
So then, if an employee is coming to you for a decision, a team member is bringing you the information. They've said, "We've got this dilemma, this problem, this thing we want to invest in, and there are 2-3 options." How do you like them to present you the information so that you can use that data to make a quick decision?
To say that I have a clear, consistent way of it. First, I come from the understanding that in most cases, when an employee comes to me with a certain problem, they usually know about it more than I do. And I will not be able to collect the relevant amount of data. So I try to guide them through the process of, I think, standard pros and cons, like realizing, okay, if we take this turn, like it will cost us this much time, but the benefit over time will be this. And then I try to essentially bring it inside. So every decision that an employee makes essentially needs to be a part of a larger paradigm that you establish in the company. So let's say you now prioritize deals in the close quarter, cash flow wise. So you need the sales, the R&D, the marketing, the operations to all be aligned with this mission. And sometimes like this is where I come to help. Like they have a decision and I try to understand how it fits in our current priorities in the entire
Right, because
company.
different people have different silos, but you have the oversight.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Okay, and my last question for today. I want to help other people out there who have been listening to you and like what you're saying, learn more. So do you have a book or some other resource which you can recommend, which people out there can go and buy and learn from and improve?
So there is a fantastic book that I'm reading currently, which is not out yet. It's called The Market Entry Strategy by Jacques Benkowski.
That's The Market Entry Strategy by Jacques Benkowski?
Benkowski, yeah.
Fantastic. What's it about?
So Jacques is a general partner in USVP, a large VC from the United States. And I would say that this is kind of a very clean-cut guide to how to build efficient go-to-market strategy for startups, as well as I think one of the problems that startups usually face is that they go by random exploration and they essentially talk to whoever they can and guide their decisions by kind of like random research and propagate out of what they did. And the basic agenda of Jacques, to very simplify the book, is kind of like you need to take difficult decisions in a startup. You need to guide with a vision and you need to test this vision and understand the implications of the decisions that you are making.
A scientific approach. You have a hypothesis, you test the hypothesis.
A scientific, and also he guides you, like, for instance, we have now some customers in Eastern Asia and in South America. And no, we got the customers, we got the deals, it's fantastic. But the thing is, now we need to establish support and we need to have 24-hour support and we need to have like channels dedicated in this area of the world for those causes. And, I did not consider it. Or at least I did not think about it through.
You didn't understand the magnitude of the issue you're going to be faced with.
Yeah. And this book is kind of like, it goes with you through the things that you need to consider.
I see, okay. Fantastic. Well, you say the book isn't out yet, but you've been able to get a preview and hopefully other people will be able to get it soon. And once it's come out, maybe update me. Definitely. I'll update the description on YouTube so that you can get a copy on Amazon or wherever it will be published. Alon, if someone wants to connect with you on LinkedIn or wherever else, how do they do it?
Search Alon Yariv.
That's Y-A-R-I-V?
Y-A-R-I-V, yeah.
Alon Yariv on LinkedIn. Fantastic. Thank you very, very much for coming down. It's been a really interesting discussion. You've been listening to Acumen, the talk show discussing leadership, business, and marketing with founders, CEOs, and other leaders like Alon with experience and things to tell, so things that you can learn from. If you like this, please let me know. Please like, share, spread the love, subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you get your podcasts, and I'll see you on the next episode.